Okay, I have to put this video out here. This isn't me gloating or anything like that, even though I kind of want to. This is simply a statement of facts. This is a receipt from the post office. And what I sent out is really important. You see, I filed a complaint against some troopers in the state police detachment here in Beckley. I did so knowing that there is a conspiracy of other state troopers and stuff involved. So here's what happened. Went to Lieutenant Deeds. Lieutenant Deeds failed to investigate. I watched some of his body language, picked up a few cues off of him. He's got a few tails, and I dropped a name. After that, suddenly I can't leave messages on his voicemail. The secretary won't transfer me to his office. No one answers the phone. Just a whole number of different things. Well, one of these little statements is going out to Lieutenant Deeds. Another one is going out to Captain White, his boss with the professional standards of the state police, Colonel Smithers. Now, the really important stuff is this. The two important ones, the two ones that only really matter in getting out, is this. Now, I have conducted my own little investigation since I got set up 6 years ago. Found out some interesting things. Actions taken to uncover this investigation locally through Lieutenant Deeds, which was suggested I go that way through Captain White, because he refused to talk to me. In fact, he delivered that message through his secretary. When it came time for me to inquire these things, he essentially shut down, failed to investigate. So what happened was, instead of me giving him all the information, I dripped a little bit of information to him. The purpose was to use his reaction. This is the second complaint I've written on Lieutenant Deeds. This is the second paper I've sent him, and I've recorded our phone calls, so that Lieutenant Deeds, him getting the information and everything else, his failure to investigate, especially considering some of this stuff went way above his pay grade. Yeah, well, then we go into Captain White, and how he didn't do anything against Lieutenant Deeds. Okay, that's cool. And then we get up here to Colonel Smithers, where I've sent him information, and it still hasn't gotten results. Now, I haven't given it a full timeline for it to get results through that little way of doing things, because I'll just delay things, put stuff off, ignore information, and say, oh, well, we didn't get it till later, or this or that or the other. And this is all important because it goes to these three individuals. Because when you go under Chapter 15 of the West Virginia Code, which deals specifically with the military, the military code, and the state police are considered the military of the state of West Virginia, or a branch of the military of the state of West Virginia, as is the National Guard. However, the military of the state is defined as the militia of the state federally. So they're not really the military. They're not the Army or the Navy or the Marine Corps or anything like that. And this comes down, and I'm going to have to look some of these things up on code here for you, but this comes down to West Virginia Code 15. This is Chapter 15. You can all look this up. I got this off the website, the state website, as a matter of fact. 15-E or 1E-81, conspiracy. Any person subject to this article who conspires with any other person to commit an offense under this article shall, if one or more of the conspirators does an act to affect the object of the conspiracy, be punished as a court-martial may direct. Now, since this involves people outside of the state police, including other police agencies and things of that nature, this pretty much deals with them. Then we have unlawful detention, which I've talked about being set up, having false charges brought against me, the police knowingly using false statements, stuff like that. That's all been addressed. The evidence I sent to these people all deals with the fact that they actually have a conspiratorial association with other people in other branches of the government, such as the prosecutor's office, the Beckley City Police, which is interesting because the woman in charge of the West Virginia Crime Lab happens to be the wife, that would be Miss McClure, or I'm sorry, Mrs. McClure, happens to be married to Sam McClure. Sam McClure happens, well, he's retired now, but he used to be a detective for the Beckley Police, and he brought the false charges of malicious wounding against me, which was later dismissed due to lack of evidence. But magically, this little conspiracy, which also includes Magistrate Mary Jennings, I was found to have probable cause for the arrest by Magistrate Jennings, because the guy who was intoxicated and was heavily on drugs, who broke into my house and pulled a knife on me that I hit in the head with a hammer, essentially said that we were all drinking, and because the police never recovered any alcohol, everyone there was sober. Well, everyone who stayed there, which was like one other person. But between me and this one other person who was there that was sober, and the drugged out guy bleeding on my front porch, is saying we were all drinking together and all this other stuff, she found probable cause. That really doesn't constitute anything that can really. But she still found probable cause. And the reason for that was basically to harass me. This was later dismissed after my court-appointed attorney, Michael Frobel, who used to be a prosecutor for West Virginia, happened to, or somewhere in, I think, Raleigh County, or maybe Kanawha County. Either way, a person who used to be a prosecutor within the state of West Virginia decided to involve himself by representing my landlord when I was taking my landlord into court, just to say there was a conflict of interest and he wanted to be removed from the proceedings dealing with the criminal case and not defend me or anything else, because I started talking about let's launch complaints on Mary Jennings because the guy who broke into my house and pulled a knife on me is saying that we were all drinking, yet no one other than him was intoxicated. It makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? But this falls under the unlawful detention. In that situation, the state police and in conspiratorial actions with Mary Jennings now become involved. And since these charges only deal specifically with the state police or the National Guard, the military portion of the West Virginia government, it still reflects that all conspirators can still be charged, just not under the same jurisdictional codes. Then we have 98, noncompliance with procedural rules. My whole little thing about clearing things up, those procedural rules that I mentioned go back on Trooper Duckworth for falsifying evidence, writing the statements down, not letting other people sign them, things of that nature. This also affects another member of the Beckley City Police. Here we go. 15-1E-132, frauds against the government. Now, I'm actually going to look this code up here on the internet for you while I'm talking about this. This, fortunately, saved in my favorites. But it says, any person subject to this article who, knowing it to be false or fraudulent, makes any claim against the United States, the state, or any official thereof, or B, presents to any person in the civil or military service thereof for approval or payment or any claim against the United States, state, or officer thereof. And then we have section 2 where it says, who, for the purpose of obtaining approval, allowance, or payment of any claim against the United States. I mean, this right here comes down to where these people are essentially falsifying evidence. But we get into 2. We get down here where it says makes use of any writing or other paper knowing it to contain any false or fraudulent statements. So the use of false statements. And bear in mind, like I said, Ashley Redden had said that her mom, the cop, and the prosecutor, those are her words, coerced her. That's my word, using this big professional legal word, because, well, her word was made me, but here we have the fraudulent, that whole idea of coercion. Now, this is a matter of public record, so if this record suddenly disappears or whatever, it's going to cause some interesting issues. More importantly, with these police officers, and more importantly with Deeds, White, and Smithers all covering it up, since they retain military rank as officers, even though they are police officers. They're still officers in the military of the state of West Virginia. We fall under 15-1E-133, which is conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. Yeah, well, Then we get down to the good one. This is the good one. This is the one I really, really like. And I'm saving this for last to make a valid point here. This here is 15-1E-94, Mutiny or Sedition. Any person subject to this article, bear in mind the military authority of the state, who with intent to usurp or override lawful military authority refuses, in concert with any other person, to obey orders or otherwise do his or her duty, or creates any violence or disturbance, is guilty of mutiny. With intent to cause overthrow or destruction of lawful civil authority, creates, in concert with any person, revolt, violence, or other disturbance against that authority, is guilty of sedition. This means all these people, including Trooper Duckworth, Palmatier, Moore, Ephred, Marsh, anyone out here who's taking part in criminal activity with these officers, is both guilty of conspiracy under the military code of the state of West Virginia and sedition. Now, I bring up sedition because sedition has this whole other list of points to it, and what we're going to start off with is this. Under the governor's power, under the governor's authority, under 5-1-2, this is Chapter 5 of the West Virginia Code, the governor has the power to arrest of persons aiding in the enemy or insurgents. A sedition can be considered an insurgency or an act of insurgency. He may also cause to be apprehended and imprisoned all who, in time of war, are war on terrorism, insurrection, public danger, there's 2 out of 3, shall willfully give aid, support, or information to the enemy or insurgents, or who shall have just cause to believe are conspiring. Wait, there we go with 15-1E-81, or combining together to aid or support any hostile action against the United States or this state. Now, bear in mind, that means the governor can start arresting elected officials like Mary Jennings and a few others because of sedition and insurgency. Yeah. And then we have Code 5-1-4, Warrants of Governor, under 5-1-1 to 5-1-3. Any warrant or order of the governor under the 3 preceding sections may be directed to any sheriff or other officer, civil or military, and shall be executed according to the terms thereof by such officer, who shall have all the powers necessary for the purpose, either in or out of his county. Dude, gotta love that one. And, of course, the most important one, and this is another cardinal rule to be addressed, is West Virginia Code 5-1-8, Governor's Warrant of Arrest, specifically subsections A and B. Subsection A, if the governor decides that the demand should be complied with, he shall sign a warrant or arrest, which shall be sealed by the Secretary of the State with the Great Seal of the State, and be directed by the governor to any peace officer or other person whom he may think fit to entrust with the execution thereof. The warrant must substantially recite the facts necessary to the validity of its issuance. Such warrant... Oh, wait. I should also mention that all this evidence I sent out also goes to Governor Tomlin's and FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Such warrant shall authorize the peace officer or other person to whom directed to arrest the accused at any time and any place where he may be found within the state, and to command the aid of all peace officers or other persons in the execution of the warrant, and to deliver the accused, subject to the provision of this article, to the duly authorized agent of the demanding state. Now, this is an important thing to remember, because when we start looking at the idea of conspiracy, and sedition within the West Virginia State Police Force. And this conspiracy underlines other people who may be elected into office, who may not be elected into office. We need to start, examining the process by which these people are elected. uh, it constitutes that the governor can actually order them to be brought for trial. And I've sent him a great deal of information, previous statements, recorded phone calls where I was told I couldn't reach this person, I'd have to call back, where he was told where he was supposed to call me back and never did. A whole list of different things. And more importantly, the reason I actually overstepped the governor, even though I have faith in Governor Tomlin, is because this little conspiracy is aided by an FBI agent by the name of Michael Hayden. Michael Hayden is a resident of Princeton, Virginia. He has familial ties in Virginia as well as West Virginia. Agent Hayden is the senior FBI office here in Southern West Virginia. He is, in fact, one of 3 FBI agents we have here. He works very closely with the Fusion Center, which also brings Thomas Kirk into this mess. And, well, he's been doing a lot of covering up evidence and everything else. I believe the building which burned down in Uptown Beckley is actually linked to this, since the FBI would be the ones examining the security footage photos from the federal courthouse adjacent to this building. And I think the governor's office, or maybe the state police forensic lab, would be in charge of investigating the surveillance cameras from the new state annex, which was right across the street. This thing set at like a little curve right here, like a little L. So here's the building at the base of the L, and right across from us the federal courthouse, and then further up on the arm of the L going up is the state courthouse, or the Raleigh County Courthouse. And then you have the state annex right here on the other side of the L. So while the building's setting at the corner of this L, the actual length, the base of the L here, the state annex is right here. All these buildings have video cameras and video feeds and everything else. I'm not sure who's in charge of checking them out. But it's rather interesting because, see, my lawyer, Mingo Winters, happened to be a lawyer for, and bear in mind, he's my court-appointed attorney. I actually had a really good attorney out of Fayette County, but for whatever reason, she came under some issues with the bar, and therefore was removed as my counsel. During this time, I was appointed Mingo Winters, who used to work for a law firm known as Hayden and Hart. Mingo Winters had a piece of evidence, which was the only existing piece of evidence. And the day after he moves into this building, the building burns to the ground. And the evidence is all gone. Amazing how that turns out. Interesting little coincidence. Especially bad because when I called his office and his secretary told me that the building had burned down, I didn't realize their office had moved into it. I was like, well, gee, isn't that convenient? I was just thinking about how convenient it is for, the prosecutor and these cops bringing false charges against me. And she immediately jumps up, what, are you accusing us of doing it? We didn't have anything to do with it. And it's kind of like, saying your wallet's missing, and then somebody jumps up saying, I didn't steal it. And you immediately suspect the guy who says, I didn't steal it, because you never accused them of stealing it. Huh. Well, all this will be looked into. Agent Hayden will be looked into and everything else. I'm simply putting this video out here. Not so much to add pressure on anyone, but just in case there happens to be someone in Governor Tomlin's office or the FBI who further up the food chain who might cover up for these people, I want it to be known that this information is out and where it's going. This way, if it's suddenly that no one gets it, or and in some of these cases, somebody has to sign for it. The FBI, Governor Tomlin, Colonel Smithers, Captain White, somebody has to sign to get these documents. So if the post office gets these documents and nobody goes in to sign them, to receive them because they see my name on there, what essentially happens is, and the post office will track these, is the fact that no one signed for them. They made it to wherever and they sat there for however many days, and then that's just more evidence of people avoiding looking into this. So if I'm crazy and I'm one of these little loony conspiracy guys, then shouldn't there be evidence to show that someone got it somewhere? I mean, look, see, here's a confirmation number. Here's the one going to the FBI headquarters. And I'm just going to show you right here. I cover up the rest. You can see where there's a confirmation number. This confirmation number will track it all through the Postal Service. Where it went to, where it, how it got there, what time it got there, what date, all of this stuff will be tracked through a computer system. So here's my point. It's not something localized, not something departmentalized. Blood relations, association, criminal undertakings, whatever, all unite a lot of these people. And now I want to see exactly how far this little conspiracy goes. Because as far as I'm concerned, I think locally it goes as far as Thomas Kirk. However, I might be wrong. God forbid, that this doesn't come out. God forbid they take more steps to cover this up, to shut me up, to have me locked up in jail where I can't talk to any media or anything else because they're afraid of this information getting out. It makes them look criminal. Anyone can investigate the information. The information is there. I've sent it to Fox News, sent it to NBC, but they sent it back to me. I sent it to Infowars.com. Alex Jones has a copy of it. I'm pretty sure he's gotten it by now. So most of these people, and he hasn't got the whole thing that I've sent. He's just got a small portion of it. I'm going to send a copy of the CD with all my information on there to him. I'm going to pass it out to a few other people. I've already made like 30 copies of the damn thing. It's just floating around in Beckley, Oak Hill, Charleston, Huntington, just all over the place. Out of the state. I've actually sent stuff to friends of mine in Texas that I was friends with in the Army who have family in Mexico. So, I mean, it's gone everywhere. Some of my associates in Canada have copies of it. It's all goes everywhere. And an interesting thing about this, I mentioned this and everybody asked me on this little upkeep thing, but what about Phil? What about Phil? Well, we'll just edit that part off. But there you go. I mean, there's the evidence. It's right there. The fact that I'm sending it out is right there. So whatever happens after this happens. I'm not running. I'm not going to run. I'm going to stand my ground. But I'm not going to, they can bring whatever false charges they want against me. But ultimately, and yes, ultimately, it comes down to the fact that I've been able to expose it. In fact, their actions show that they are afraid of exposure, failing to return my calls, not wanting to have anything to do with me, especially after a recorded conversation between myself and Lieutenant Deeds in the Beckley State Police Office down there at the DMV, where I mentioned to him in the copy room because I didn't want anybody else to hear about it, because I wanted him to think it'd be a nice little secretive discussion and there'd be no one else there to overhear the words Thomas Kirk and Fusion Center in Charleston. Because not only is it not just this FBI agent who I'm not supposed to know who he is, but also these other people.